Today I'd like to talk about contrast. Differences. Differences that are made so sharp and so clear when you look at the opposite extremes. Weather can be like that. We just got a phone call a little bit ago from family back home in Georgia. And this afternoon, sleet has been falling in our little town. Winter is approaching. I understand this weekend it's supposed to be down to 29 degrees. Sissy and I, instead of being at home this week, are at the beach. And the weather is quite a contrast right here from sleet. Let me just try to show you the difference from where I'm looking right now. And as you can see, it is a bright, beautiful, sunny day in North Florida today. Quite a contrast of the sun with the sleet. I'd like to look at a passage of Scripture today that talks about contrast. It's from Matthew chapter 7. Yesterday I looked at Matthew chapter 6. Today Matthew 7. And Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7 are the words of Jesus that we know and call the Sermon on the Mount. In this final chapter that includes the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus makes great use of contrast to make his point, to grab the attention of his listeners, and for us now as his readers, to look at there are clear choices to make in life. There are options in life. And he persuades us by making such an obvious contrast of choices that we should make. He talks about judging. He talks about asking. He talks about false prophets. And he talks about the kingdom of heaven. Quickly, let's look at how he uses contrast in each one of those topics. First of all, in regard to judging, Jesus says, verse 3 of Matthew 7, "Why do you look at the speck that's in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that's in your own eye?" Tiny little speck, big log. Jesus makes it obvious we need to look at something big in our own lives before we look at some little itsy bitsy thing in somebody else's life. Also, in regard to other people, Jesus says, don't give what's holy to dogs. Do not throw your pearls before swine. Once again, making contrasts between the power, the beauty, the wonder of truth, true teaching, gospel. What is holy in contrast to dogs? What is holy and beautiful in comparison to pearls to swine? So Jesus talks about judging. Then he talks about asking or praying. He says, "What man is there among you who, when his son asks for a loaf, will give him a stone?" Contrast between a loaf of bread or a stone. Which would God give? Or if he asks for a fish, will he not give him? He will not give him a snake, will he? Fish, snake, two very different things. Jesus says, if you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give what's good to those who ask him? So Jesus uses contrast to make the point of asking of the Father. Then Jesus talks about false prophets and how they stand out to us. Verse 15, "Beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves." Sheep, wolf, two different creatures. You will know them by their fruits. Grapes are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor figs from thistles, are they? Grapes, thorns. Figs, thistles. Different fruit, different objects. Then he says, so every good tree bears good fruit, but the bad tree bears bad fruit. Good tree, good fruit. Bad tree, bad fruit. Easy to tell the difference. That's how you spot false prophets, by their fruits, by the results of their words and their deeds. Then finally, Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven. Verse 13, he says, enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide, and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter through it. But the gate is small, and the way is narrow that leads to life, and there are few who find it. Wide gate, broad way, destruction, many. Small gate, narrow way, life, few. And then finally, to drive home, once again with contrast, the point about the kingdom of heaven. He said, therefore those who hear these words of mine and acts on them may be compared to a wise man who built his house on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. Wise man, rock. Foolish man, sand. When the storm comes, the results are obvious. When Jesus had finished these words, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one having authority and not as their scribes. Jesus was a powerful teacher. He used contrasts to make it very clear, to make the differences very sharp, that he might persuade people, that he might grab people's attention, that they might choose life.